Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Rausan Pereira. Well, the government has warned against a large-scale cyber attack against individuals and businesses where attackers may use COVID-19 as bait to steal personal and financial information. India's cybersecurity nodal agency, CERT-In, has issued an advisory warning that the potential phishing attacks could impersonate government agencies, departments and trade bodies that have been tasked to oversee the disbursement of government fiscal aid. The attackers are expected to send malicious emails under the pretext of local authorities that are in charge of dispensing government-funded COVID-19 support initiatives. The advisory noted that the malicious actors are claiming to have 2 million email IDs and are planning to send emails with the subject line free COVID-19 testing for all residents of Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai and Ahmedabad in a bid to coax the users to disclose personal information. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze what phishing attacks are and how to deal with them. Joining me on the program today are Arvind Gupta, head and co-founder of Digital India Foundation, Subimal Bhattacharjee, cybersecurity expert, and Karnika, Seth, advocate of the Supreme Court and cyber law expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Arvind Gupta, let me start the program with you first. Let's understand this warning that has been given by CERT-In and also what are phishing attacks?
Frank, in a very simple language, a phishing attack is an attack which impersonates or mail or any SMS or anything that looks like something else, but is actually not. So email may look like, as you have explained, as the CERT advisory has explained, may look like being sent from the government, but is actually not sent from the government. It has malicious intent. It is trying to take a lot of personal information from you, or maybe install a malware onto your computer. It's inciting you by giving some, clickbait kind of a headlines to click on that email, to look at that email, to probably, download an attachment or go to a link that it has embedded inside it, where it will start its malicious activities from. So, phishing attacks are pretty common when it comes to financial information. A lot of people, send information out and in a phishing attempt to impersonating as a bank or as something else. Their domains are different. Their, a small bits of information is different. So that is exactly the intent of a phishing attempt, where you're impersonating as somebody else, and it's a non-genuine email which has a clickbait, like in this case a free COVID test, to make you do some action in that email, which could be a download, which could be clicking on a link, and from there onwards all the malicious activity starts. Maybe a malware is installed, maybe something, you go to a site where some personal information is then asked for, and your nightmare begins from there on.
Okay, all right. Subimal Bhattacharjee, so how is this information used? What is this information used for? And how do we protect ourselves from such attacks?
Basically, as Arvindji has explained very conclusively, the intent behind such kind of attacks is primarily to, give you a bait or clickbait, and then, basically gather either financial information out of you, or result you in a kind of a transaction where you actually lose your money. And this is, of course, COVID-19 has been a trigger point now, but all through in the last few years, this kind of phishing activities, even spear phishing, has gone to many parts of the country. The only point on which many people connect with you from across the country is when an individual or someone elderly in his family has lost money. I am aware of people who have put pension money in their accounts. They got an email, they clicked it, they thought it, was a genuine email. A lot of the people aren't that, still, I wouldn't use the word cyber savvy, but aren't really oriented in that way to really differentiate between what is a genuine email looking exactly like, say, a particular bank's logo and everything. Instead of they go and click, they believe that what they are getting is true. So in the process, they get caught. money goes away. Of course, RBI has given out his rules in 2017, based on which if you are complaining within 72 hours, you are generally getting back your money. But the sum and substance is that the problem of phishing has been increasing over all these years, and COVID-19 is another opportunity to go ahead and try that same trick. I'm glad that CERT-in has issued a very, very specific advisory around it, even specifying a date on which such an attack would be going out. Now, the second part of the question that you asked me about, what is a way to, uh, uh, you know, not get trapped
Safeguard.
in a phishing. Now, there are two aspects that we have to look at. One, of course, is the consumer or a citizen angle. Now, generally, I would think, and I always harp on this point, is that a large awareness campaign by the particular entity, by the particular institution, has to happen for its customers or even for the citizens. In the case of banks and all, I think it is very essential to do a regular kind of an awareness building. But having said so, in this kind of a situation around COVID, as a particular email has also been put across in the certain advisory, I think the thumb rule to stay safe around such kind of attempts always is that never click on anything that you are not sure of. And here in this case, as Arvindji very well put out, that there is a certain bait, there is a certain sense of urgency that is put across in an email. There is a time-bound activity, something like that. Whenever you see something like that coming to you, that you should stay away from that. To give a very simple example, that if someone comes to your gate and knocks the bell or rings the bell, that's when you are able to get to the gate and decide whether you should enter him or not. Here, at least you have a gate as a barrier. In this online case, very many times you don't have that barrier in place. So that's where you should put your discretion that I am not going to open the gate to anyone, because ultimately it's a stranger from somewhere. He is trying to seek information from me.
Right.
At a institutional level, where emails are generated and sent and all, for some time now, technology around the email system has also been evolving for a little bit over a decade now. The recourse to the DKIM and the senders policy framework, SPF, I think they have been further strengthened when now we have a kind of a, I wouldn't say it's a standard, but it's a kind of a protocol that most of the institutions using large-scale email systems are also looking at, where the authentication between a sender and a receiver is facilitated. We call it the
Sure.
DMARC. So I think even at an institutional level, the responsibility of trying to see where those 20 lakh email addresses that would have been used as CERT mentioned in its advisory, I think those are the things also we should look at. But by and large, we should be advising the general citizens to stay away from such thing. And I think CERT did a good job and a timely job.
Okay. Okay, create better awareness, and at a personal level, of course, this issue has to be dealt with, is what you're suggesting. We'll look at two other aspects that you raised as well: technology and the 20 lakh email IDs a little later on in the program. But from an institutional level or from a larger, broader perspective, let me get in Karnika Seth now into the picture. So, do we have the requisite laws, policies, and frameworks to deal with such kind of attacks or cyber attacks as a whole, Karnika?
Yes, Frank, I think it's a very pertinent question today. The kind of cyber crimes which have grown over the last few weeks, we've seen COVID has really been one of the main problems that the society and the whole in the whole, I would say, global platform we have all suffered from. But the fear and the panic has been misused by the criminals, and a lot of domain names were created during this time. Fake email IDs were created, And as Subimal also said, and as Arvindji also explained, the phishing attacks have emanated in the cyberspace. Apart from that, we have also seen ransomware attacks and a rise of, a lot of complex phishing attacks coupled with ransomware attacks, hacking attacks on protected systems of, countries. Just lately, we have seen the Australia as an example. A lot of attacks have happened, and similar advisory has been issued by the the Indian certain for phishing. And likewise, there are a lot of dangers from transporter crimes emanating in this particular space. And not only the citizens have to be aware of being very cautious of what links they are clicking or which apps they are clicking. For example, even Arogya Setu, we've seen the certain has very clearly said that even that there are phishing links of Arogya Setu app also sometimes, WHO, and then video conferencing apps. They are phishing, just mirror cloned pages on online, which will look like they're original web pages, but they're not original web pages. So you have to be very, very cautious of what URLs you are typing in the address bar, rather than going to a search engine and just typing, the name of the app. It's better to just know the exact official, this URL of that particular, service, and then go on to that, because it's very easy to get duped like this. So we have to be very, very cautious in this present times. And as regards a nation law, we have IT Act in place, the IT Act 2000 in place. There are stringent provisions against hacking. There are stringent provisions against, any kind of identity thefts, cheating by personation, up to 3 years of imprisonment, fine, or both. And against cyber terrorism, it's considered a heinous offense again, and up to life imprisonment is the kind of deterrent punishments that we have. The challenges here, not the non-existence of law, but the implementation, the enforcement, is a huge challenge at this point. Specifically, there may be certain things like fake news where we may not have explicit provision also under the law. So we have certain provisions which I feel for the time being can grapple easily with hacking and other issues, phishing and other issues. However, enforcement is a huge challenge, particularly because trans-border crimes are on the rise. And there, the cooperation with the law enforcement of the other country becomes a huge concern. Timelines have to be followed. How quick we are able to get evidence from there? Is the authority there cooperating enough? Are there any bilateral treaties? Is there MLAT system which will come to our rescue? All these questions emanate, in this particular space. So
Right.
that is the one aspect. As a nation, on the national front, our protected systems, are they enough protection available in terms of policy? If I see policy, then the cyber security policy, we read in the papers today also, the cyber security policy of our country 2013 is the policy that was culled out. And now it's time that we look at having a new policy. It's underway, and we are hoping that it will be soon issued. So that is the need
Sure.
of the hour in terms of policy.
Okay, all right. Taking the discussion forward now, I'm going to take a point that Subimal was making forward with you, Arvind Gupta. The fact of technology and how do we use technology to really deal with such kind of attacks and what needs to be done.
So Frank, there are multiple things. Let me respond to your question and what Subimal and Karnika ji raised. Let me give a very different perspective. Number one is that when we deal with such attacks, of course, citizens have to be aware. I think we have to maintain, like we are maintaining in this viral world of Corona times, a physical distancing. We have to understand there's a digital distancing we also have to maintain. There is no free lunch here. So anytime somebody is promising, and I have an email which is more of a spam, probably not phishing, received as we are doing this show, which has just promised me $5,000. You have to understand there is this fight. Nobody's going to give you $5,000 for free, right? So there is a hook that that exists. But coming to two very interesting points. One is the bilateral. How do you report? First of all, many people we have seen don't report phishing attacks. they don't actually, they feel shy of reporting phishing attacks because they don't want to report that they got duped so easily. So we see a lot of under-reportage of phishing attacks and this criminal online, and they don't know the processes many times. Two, we have to recognize and we have to be very frank here that who are we discussing these attacks from in this specific case? Mostly any activity that we are seeing right now are coming from our neighboring countries, which are, we have to call it, it's state sponsored. And when it is a state sponsored, there is going to be no cooperation. And when it's zero cooperation, we expect no cooperation. So this is by design, and I am going ahead and saying this is by design. It has Australia has seen it, as Karnika ji has said it, and India needs to be very, very aware of as we are aware on our on our physical security, we have to be aware on our digital security. Our cyber defenses need to be up, and they start from all the way from networks to to our individual systems. And we have to be our critical infrastructure has to be protected, and we have to be on our alert right now as a nation. But we have with individuals or groups who are trying to make money out of it or ransom. I think those can be dealt with. There are multilateral treaties, bilateral treaties that you can go back to. Here you're not dealing with that. The last point I want to raise, Frank, is the issue is that while the world and the countries like India and everybody else has been fighting the pandemic, nations/people groups are using this opportunity to spread misinformation. And a lot of times, I believe these phishing attacks are trying to when they are, the bigger objective is not just money, but could be misinformation and spreading disinformation and playing psychological warfare with the mind. So I think we have to be even more cautious here, and make sure that we are well protected, well aware, and we must also strengthen our cyber defenses. And I think CERT has to be recommended for the fact that it has taken some preventive steps and created this awareness. But we still, as citizens, have to do our part.
Absolutely. I think, if my memory serves me right, I think this is the first time that I'm seeing something like this ever coming out of government agencies, really, as to warning beforehand about how something like this might indeed take place. So we were taking the discussion forward now. So how does one differentiate, especially at a time like this, going through a difficult phase, a difficult time? The banks are sending you a lot of communication as well. How do you the government is also sending you communication. How do you differentiate between genuine information and malicious information?
See, as I mentioned, and others have also, the thin line between a genuine mail and a fake mail is, very, very thin, and it's getting thinner day by day. And what we do when we see an email, we don't read it all through properly. We occasionally try and trust the moment an email comes when we see a logo or some brand, a retention activity that is there associated with the email. So as one would really want to be absolutely safe, I think you should never click on anything wherever any kind of suspicion comes to your mind. That is the fundamental point of view, that you can get an email. Now, even in this CERT advisory, if you see that, right now that so much of disbursement is also happening of government schemes and all. So an attempt might be there around that. Now, a lot of people who are getting those disbursements are generally not in an email chain. So if I am getting or you are getting any kind of such kind of an email, automatically our antennas and alert level should arise that this obviously is not something that of a largesse that the government is giving. Government on its part has to ensure that the targeted delivery to which such facilities and benefits are reaching, they go via the normal channel the way they are going. And if there is a significant change around that, then the government mechanism to reach out to those targeted people and groups are very much prevalent. And by and large, in all of these few months that we have seen across in remote places also, the targeted people have been reached out and people have got their stuff. So, but coming back to the focus of this discussion, I think the thumb rule remains that, don't go and get trapped in any of these baits. Please stay away from accepting any kind of largesse that is being provided suddenly to you. Please stay away from thinking that suddenly there is a big emergency to collect all of your personal information that could be a determinant to taking you into some malicious websites. And on and off, please keep on updating whatever security systems that you have in your device. By and
Right.
large, we have all moved to mobile devices and most of our activities are on a mobile device. To a great extent, the service providers are providing the right degree of, I would say, solutions built in there and being updated and all. But individually, as Arvindji has also said, we have our responsibilities to be alert and to stay away from such kind of trend. That's the only way we can protect ourselves. You can build an
Sure.
awareness campaign, Frank, but it will remain confined to certain areas. You cannot cover such a huge country, and at this point of time, with such kind of awareness campaign that can stop such kind of tendencies. And as our neighbors, two of our neighbors are the most notorious players in the cyberspace all through, and they have seen this as an opportunity to create another round of trouble in the digital space in this country.
Right.
These tendencies will be there. That's where certain, that's where the tech mechanisms, that's where the whole critical infrastructure protection mechanisms, they all
Mhm.
come into place. And by and large, everyone is alert in this country to such designs.
Okay, all right. Karnika said, so say for instance, because the level of activity or crime that takes place is something new and they keep innovating on a daily basis. Say for instance, someone does fall prey to a malicious attack like this or to a cyber crime like this. What legal options does that person really have?
Okay, so if a person is, say, attacked, there's a phishing attack, and he loses money from his bank account unauthorizedly. First of all, if it is a credit card, one needs to immediately get it blocked, and inform the bank also that this activity has taken place. And also, whenever you see a particular message that this amount has been debited, that screenshot must be taken immediately because it's an electronic evidence we must preserve for investigation purposes. And then one also needs to inform the police immediately, because once you have your FRI should be registered, and once the FIR gets registered, you investigation will continue, and the bank obviously will have to cooperate with the investigation process. And most often, people are not aware, but there is also a remedy under section 46 and 43 of the IT Act, where the adjudicating authority grants compensation to the victim. So if he reports that there is a money loss also which has happened, and his data may be lost and compromised by an attacker, then yes, the recurrence of the attack, how much damage has been caused to him, what is the I would say the quantum of compensation which needs to be granted, that is decided by the adjudicating authority, and that is the secretary IT of every state. Secretary IT at the moment of every state is the authorized officer who grants compensation to the victim. So that is another remedy. Plus, if the bank themselves reverses the amount, that's a good option. If they don't do so, then there is a banking ombudsman also, to which the complainant can approach. So that is also another possibility. So in most cases, such unauthorized transactions would be nipped in the bud, and one can actually reverse entries also. But very cleverly, what most of the criminals would do is that they would steal this information and probably even withdraw monies from the ATM. Sometimes that is also seen. If it's a card, for example, cloning of a card which has happened. But in most online transactions like shopping malls, these criminals take away the data, and they misuse those in that information to shop online or to take services online. And unfortunately, if the victim has not registered for a two-step verification, there will be no OTP sent on his phone or other gadget to actually get an approval from him for the transaction. And in that case, he will not even, sometimes if he has not registered with the bank, he may not even get an alert. So
Absolutely.
that is the worry. So one needs to have a two-step verification, not only for your email accounts, I would say, but also for all your online net banking transactions. One needs to register for online alerts also with the bank. And for every online shopping that is done by you, there should be a two-step verification mechanism. So
Sure.
only if the CVV is compromised or the credit card number is compromised, that should not be sufficient in that case to take away monies from the account if there is a two-step verification which has been activated. So that is very essential for people to
Right.
understand.
Okay. All right. I've got 3 minutes left on the program now. So quick closing, concluding remarks from all my guests in 1 minute each. What's the best way forward? Starting first with you, Arvind Gupta.
I think enable as much as security that you can enable on your phones. Don't do searches and go to bank sites, because anybody today can spend a little bit of money on search engine optimization and create fictitious links. Don't first question anything that is being offered free. So don't just click without thinking on an email or any link which promises free stuff, whether it's money, schemes, mobile phones, any awards. And be very wary of sharing personal information on an unknown website. And anytime that is somebody is asking you for a lot of personal information, just question that. Ask your friends, family, why is that I'm giving so much of personal information. Talk to somebody on the phone with the bank actually before giving that out. Right now we are seeing this is to prevent basic steps to prevent, but right now we are seeing an organized activity which is targeting Indian citizens, Indian establishments, and that's what the advisory says. And based on the advisory, everybody needs to be alert. We these are testing times when we have a pandemic going on. We should also be aware that this opportunity, when we have a anxiety, stress of all other sorts, is being used
Right.
by nefarious actors to get into our minds, our computers, our phones, to do all sorts of undesired activities.
Absolutely. Subimal, very quickly.
Frank, I think besides our alert that we already have now for the pandemic, I think our alert level for whatever comes through our digital devices, that of course has to be enhanced. But I'll just add one point to what Karnika mentioned, that the RBI circular of 14th December 2017 lays out very clearly the three steps under which liability remains with the customer when he's caught in that trap. So I think if somewhere the banks pick up that and also parallelly do a messaging right now that if you are reporting within 3 days, then zero liability. Within 4 and 7 days, this much. After 7 days, the bank's board takes a decision. Then a lot of people will also know, because one of the common point that people have is they don't know where to complain or go to when
Right.
an attack happens.
Okay. All right. And Karnika, close the show for us with your quick concluding remark.
Well, I think number one, cyber awareness. Number two is, we have to be very careful of whatever links we are, clicking. And the cyber defense of the nation obviously needs to be, very much on the vigil. And as a citizen, we have to be conscious of forwarding any news that we get. Must check which news is genuine by going to the official handles of these news sites. That is very
Right.
important.
Okay, all right. On that note, then I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my
Thank you.
guests for joining me on the program and putting
Thank
things
you.
into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.